Welcome, chess fans, to another analysis of an amateur game. We will focus in this video on the French defense and some tactical motives. White plays e4, e6, d4, d5, knight to d2, a very flexible answer to the French defense. Knight to f6, e5, knight fd7, bishop d3, c5, c3, knight to c6, knight to e2, and now queen b6. A lot of the game focuses on the pawn on d4. Black gangs up on this pawn, and in turn white defends this pawn. And now the game continued knight to f3, and again you can see the whole focus of the game is on the pawn on d4. Instead of queen to b6, black can also take out this pawn. White retakes with the pawn, so a little bit of the pressure has gone off the pawn. And exercise number one is, if black plays like this and white retakes, what are black's main options here and how can white respond? Exercise number one, pause your video and find the main moves for black here. There are three main moves. Okay, the main move here is f6, and the motive is that black wants to question the center of white. White has built a nice and strong center here with his pawns, and black had exchanged one pawn here in the move before, and now it's a logical plan to continue attacking the center. White should say, okay, I give up this pawn, and the game could continue normally like this with a fine position for white, but also very playable for black. Black has this weakness here, but white also has this isolated pawn. Okay, so one plan is f6, and black nibbles away on the center of white. Another move is queen b6 now. The idea is again to attack the center, and instead of playing knight b6 immediately, black can also play queen b6 immediately. Black can also play it in the next move after exchanging one time on the pawns. The game could continue knight to f3, and now because those pawns here have been exchanged, black has the extra resource of developing the bishop with check, but white can simply attack the bishop, and if black exchanges, white maintains control of the b2 square, and the game continues. And the third resource here is, after exchanging the pawns here, black can develop with knight b6, and the game simply continues. Here, black says, okay, I'm gonna leave you your center, but I'm gonna develop my pieces and get some piece play, and maybe at a later point in time attack the center. I'm gonna develop my knight, you have your weakness here, and I have a very robust pawn structure here. So I'm just going to develop, you're just going to develop, and we're going to play the game. Show me how you're going to make use of this center. White can simply castle, and black develops, and the game can continue like this with the white plan of pushing the pawn forward, and black can try to deny this to white, and the game continues. Okay, so instead of playing queen b6, black can also take here, and then has the three options of f6, queen b6, or knight b6. Okay, after queen b6, knight f3, protecting the pawn. Black develops, bishop e7, castle, castle. And now white played a3 with the plan of pushing b4 and maybe exchanging the pawn here. An alternative move in this position here, instead of a3, is also knight to f4. And pause your video now for exercise number 2. What is the purpose of knight f4 here? Okay. The purpose of knight f4 is not so clear in the beginning. Let's have a look. First of all, white protects the d4 square now only 2 times, and black is attacking 3 times, but actually black cannot take because well, black could take and play like this, but now if black thinks, okay, I can take out this pawn, because I can move my queen here, that's actually a big trap, because here's the discovered attack with the check. So actually knight f4 does not give up the d4 pawn, first of all. Okay, but what does it do then? Okay, what it does is 2 things. Let's have a look at the sample line here that allows us to see both of the motives behind knight f4. Maybe before that I should say the black king is a little bit alone here. So white can gang up with a lot of pieces here that can get to the king side really quickly, whereas the black pieces are kind of on the other side of the board. That's a common motive in the French defense with the knight to f6 and d7 and the push the pawn forward. So there's always motives of ganging up on the king and having a kingside attack, and knight f4 kind of visually you can see it already moves the knight closer to the king side and the board. So king attack is one motive in general. Now if the game continued like this, black quickly wants to activate his pieces on the queen side because they're all there. The game could continue like this. Let's say black really wants to speed up and then also challenge the center here. Now the first motive becomes clear. The second motive of the knight f4. Whenever black plays f6, which is a typical plan to challenge the center here of white, then the knight on f4 is having a good position to put a little pressure on the e6. So that's one motive of knight f4. And let's continue. It's not the best line for black or for white, it's just to show some ideas. Let's continue the game like this. Often white plays with building a battery on the king with the bishop and the queen. And often, because the pieces are on this side of the board, black cannot defend this so well. So often the only move is g6. And another reason why the knight on f4 is often in a good position is because then the knight can defy the resource g6. For example, here the knight can simply sacrifice itself with mate. Okay, so let's summarize. In this position here, one plan is to play a3, and another plan, which is actually a quite good plan, is to bring the knight to f4, moving the pieces into the kingside attack, and potentially in the future denying black the defensive resource of g6 and having a little pressure on e6 should black ever attempt to play f6 and open up and challenge white center in this way. Okay, but a3 is also an absolutely playable move, of course. Black continued f6, challenging the center. E takes f, knight takes f6, and now white can continue with this plan, taking the pawn and advancing the b pawn with tempo. Okay, in this position here, white played e3, and pause your video for exercise number 3. Why is this move a little bit imprecise? Okay, this move is a little bit imprecise. Let's have a look at the game. In the game, black played queen to c7, and now let's have a look at this position here. The queen is actually performing an excellent job here on the c7 square. It's eyeing the h2 pawn and creating a battery with the bishop. And on the other hand, here the black queen didn't do so much anything. It cannot move to the white squares. It also cannot move to the black squares because they're denied by the pawn now. So the queen wanted to move away from here anyways, and it's very happy on the c7 square, having this battery and potentially also eyeing white's weakness here on the c4 pawn, or establishing a little control over the c4 square. So by moving the bishop to e3, first, white is attacking the queen, which is good and which looks nice, which might look nice in the game, but actually the queen wanted to move away anyways. And at the same time, the bishop is also not so good here, because what function does the bishop perform here? It's not attacking anything, it's not controlling any important diagonals. It can be roughed up by the pawns, maybe. It can be attacked by the knight, maybe. And if ever white wanted to attack the weakness of black on e6 with the rook, then the bishop is also blocking this file of attack here. So bishop e3 actually doesn't do much and puts the queen on a better position and the bishop on a worse position. So that's why it's actually quite an imprecise move. The game continued bishop e3, queen c7, c4, which is a good move, pushing this pawn forward, eliminating the weakness and also challenging the remaining center control that black has. And a much better move here would have been in this position here, instead of bishop to e3, to leave the queen on the bad square here and push c4 immediately. Okay, after queen c7, bishop e3, queen c7, white now played c4, bishop d7, develop, putting the queen out of the pin, c takes d, e takes d, black now has an isolated pawn. But it's not a big advantage for white because this pawn can be actually also quite strong. White denies the isolated pawn to advance, which is always a motive. When you have an isolated pawn, you want to advance it. Knight takes, and black should have taken with the bishop here. And knight takes d4 is actually a big mistake. Exercise number 4. How can black win the game now? Okay, in this position here, black can win the game by playing bishop takes h2. Okay, taking a pawn, giving a check, attacking the king, and if the king takes here on h2, black can play knight to g4 check. If the king moves back, then black can do little to either lose his queen or to escape the white cannot escape the mate and has to sacrifice the queen, so black wins the game. So why can black play bishop takes h2 here? The motive is a decoy. The king is decoyed into the check of the knight, and the second motive is mate. So those are the two tactical motives that you have to see bishop takes h2. Okay, after knight takes g4, white can actually, instead of moving the king back to g1, also play g3, and now the queen cannot move to h4 to give a check on h2, because the king is controlling the square, is controlling the h4 square. And exercise number 5, the black king moved out to the front, which cannot be good, but how can black exploit this and win? Find the best move for black, exercise number 5. Okay, black can exploit this with the move h5. And there are 3 motives that you have to see. The first motive is black, the white king actually has very few squares. So one motive is trapping a piece, in this case the king. The white king cannot move to f4 and f3 because of the rook, cannot move to h4 because of the queen, and not to h2 because of the knight. So the only square that the king can move to is the h3 square, and this is where we want to chase the king in the next move. And so one motive is that the king doesn't have any squares, trapping a piece, and the second motive is a decoy, because after an active move, queen attacking the pawn here, black can now play h4 check, and now the king is decoyed into the only square that it has. And now the third motive is a discovered attack on the king. And now black is absolutely crushing. Black will be able to control the d5 square, has won back its piece, and has a winning attack on the king as well. Okay, so after knight takes d4, black could have won the game here with bishop takes h2. Instead, black played a6, queen b3, a similar motive as we have seen in the variation before, rook to c8, bishop g5, and now, by the way, bishop takes h2 was also possible. And you can already see here, again, the bishop was not well placed on e3. It has a better function to g5 and now moves there. So what we have seen before, moving the bishop from c1 to e3 was not a good idea, because now it becomes even clearer that it doesn't have much of a function there. Okay, bishop e5, rook takes, knight to f3, bishop e8, bishop e4. The motive here is that white has this pin and wants to attack the d5 square. The d5 pawn also has the pin here, so a lot of tactical motives going on here. And after bishop e6, white played rook to d1, and queen played queen to b6, and now white did a big mistake after bishop takes f6. How can black win here? Exercise number 6, simple tactical exercise. How can black win? Okay, black can win by taking out the e4 piece, and now the motive is a discovered attack on the queen, and the bishop is protected now by the queen. This was the purpose of the move to b6. It was a double purpose of moving the queen outside of the pin and also protecting the bishop e6, preparing the discovered attack. So discovered attack is the first motive, and the second motive is double attack, because now 2 pieces of white are attacked, otherwise material is equal, and the discovered attack and the double attack wins the game for black. Okay, this is very unfortunate because in this position here, white has this pin and white has this pin and this nice attack on the pawn. So exercise number 7. Rather than playing rook d1, which might look good because it introduces a third pin, how could white have played instead to win the game and exploit the tactical motives and resources that are available to him. Okay, White could have instead played bishop takes f6. The motive is eliminating a defender. The knight was defending the pawn on d5, and the bishop eliminates this defender, and we give up a pin. Normally it's good to maintain the pin, but after rook takes f6, we now establish another pin, and this pin will decide for us to be able to win this pawn, the diagonal on the king, and also the game. If in this position here queen takes, then we also win the pawn and the game right away. Okay, after rook d1, bishop takes f6, and now black blundered, not taking out the bishop as we have seen in the exercise, but actually taking out the bishop on f6. And now, as it happens in amateur games, White won the pawn and the piece and the game. Okay, thanks a lot for watching.